Well, hello there, squirrels. I've taken a long enough break, yo. This is what we're reading. I thought the cover was so pretty that y'all might want to see it. Sorry for all the glare from the window. The Old Curiosity Shop by Charles Dickens. We thought we'd take a break from Agatha, and this is another one. Recommended by Miss Pat Dancer. And the only other recommendation that I recall is one by Sunflower Ashley, who mentioned Midsummer Night's Dream, I think, by Shakespeare. I don't know if I'm up to Shakespeare, but I might try. But we'll get through this one first. Chapter 1 of The Old Curiosity Shop. Night is generally my time for walking. In the summer, I often leave home early in the morning and roam about fields and lanes all day, or even escape for days or weeks together, but saving in the country, I seldom go out until after dark, though. Heaven be thanked, I love its light and feel the cheerfulness it sheds upon the earth as much as any creature living. I have fallen insensibly into this habit, both because it favors my infirmity and because it affords me greater opportunity of speculating on the characters and occupations of those who fill the streets. The glare and hurry of broad noon are not adapted to idle pursuits like mine. A glimpse of passing faces caught by the light of a street lamp or a shop window is often better for my purpose than their full revelation in the daylight, and, if I must add the truth, night is kinder in this respect than day, which too often destroys an air-built castle at the moment of its completion without the least ceremony or remorse. That constant pacing to and fro, that never-ending restlessness, that incessant tread of feet, my hair, wearing the rough stones smooth and glossy, is it not a wonder how the dwellers in narrows ways can bear to hear it? Think of a sick man in such a place as St. Martin's Court listening to the footsteps, and in the midst of pain and weariness obliged, despite himself, and in parentheses, as though it were a task he must perform, to detect the child's step from the man's, the slipshod beggar from the booted exquisite, the lounging from the busy, the dull heel of the sauntering outcast from the quick tread of an expectant pleasure-seeker. Think of the hum and the noise always being present to his sense, and of the stream of life that will not stop, pouring on, through all his restless dreams, as if he were condemned to lie dead but conscious in a noisy churchyard, and had no hope of rest for centuries to come. Then the crowds forever passing and repassing on the bridges, in parentheses, on those which are free of toll at last, where many stop on fine evenings, looking listlessly down upon the water with some vague idea that by and by it runs between green banks which grow wider and wider until at last it joins the broad, vast sea, where some halt to rest from heavy loads, and think as they look over the parapet that to smoke and lounge away one's life and lie sleeping in the sun upon a hot tarpaulin in a dull, slow, sluggish barge must be happiness unalloyed, and where some, and a very different class, pause with heavier loads than they, remembering to have heard or read in old time that drowning was not a hard death, but of all means of suicide the easiest and best. Covent Garden Market, love that place, At sunrise, too, in the spring or summer, when the fragrance of sweet flowers is in the air, overpowering even the unwholesome streams of last night's debauchery, and driving the dusky thrush, whose cage has hung outside a garret window all night long, half mad with joy. Poor bird, the only neighboring thing to all akin to the other little captives, some of whom, shrinking from the hot hands of drunken purchasers, lie drooping on the path already, while others, soddened by close contact, await the time when they shall be watered and freshened up to please more sober company, and made old clerks who pass them on their road to business wonder what has filled their breast with visions of the country. But my present purpose is not to expatiate upon my walks, or expatiate. It's always an itch when I read. Vibrations. My big old schnozola. Expatiate. Speak or write at length or detail. Upon my walks, the story I am about to relate, and to which I shall recur at intervals, arose out of one of these rambles, and thus I have been led to speak of them by way of preface. One night I had roamed into the city and was walking slowly on in my usual way, musing upon a great many things, when I was arrested by an inquiry, the purport of which did not reach me, but which seemed to be addressed to myself, and was preferred in a sweet, soft voice that struck me very pleasantly. I turned hastily round and found at my elbow, sorry about that, this thing plugged up. Somewhere in here I have my little fancy couple of fancies from Miss Tracy. She knows constantly at my boogers, or doesn't feel like boogers, it's just itchy, but we'll go digging for gold just in case it should fall out. Now, where was I? Soft, sweet voice that struck me very pleasantly. I turned hastily around and found at my elbow a pretty little girl who begged to be directed to a certain street at a considerable distance, and indeed in quite another quarter of the town. "It is a very long way from here," said I, "my child." "I know that, sir," she replied timidly. "I'm afraid it is a very long way, for I came from there tonight." "Alone?" said I in some surprise. "Oh, yes, I don't mind that, but I'm a little frightened now, for I have lost my road." "And what made you ask it of me? Suppose I should tell you wrong?" "I'm sure you'll not do that," said the little creature. "You're such a very old gentleman, and walk so slow yourself." I cannot describe how much I was impressed by this appeal, and the energy with which it was made, which brought a tear into the child's clear eye, and made her slight figure tremble as she looked up into my face. "Come," said I, "I'll take you there." She put her hand in mine as confidingly as if she had known me from her cradle, and we trudged away together, the little creature accommodating her pace to mine, and rather seeming to lead and take care of me than I to be protecting her. I observed that every now and then she stole a curious look at my face, as if to make quite sure that I was not deceiving her, and that these glances, very sharp and keen they were too, seemed to increase her confidence at every repetition. For my part, my curiosity and interest were at least equal to the child's. For child she certainly was, although I thought it probable, from what I could make out, that her very small and delicate frame imparted a particular youthfulness to her appearance. Though more scantily attired than she might have been, she was dressed with perfect neatness, and betrayed no marks of poverty or neglect. "Who has sent you so far by yourself?" said I. "Someone who is very kind to me, sir." "And what have you been doing?" "That I must not tell," said the child firmly. There was something in the manner of this reply which caused me to look at the little creature with an involuntary expression of surprise, for I wondered what kind of errand it might be that occasioned her to be prepared for questioning. Her quick eye seemed to read my thoughts, for as it met mine she added that there was no harm in what she had been doing, but it was a great secret, a secret which she did not even know herself. This was said with no appearance of cunning or deceit, but with an unsuspicious frankness that bore the impress of truth. The Empress. She walked on as before, growing more familiar with me as we proceeded, and talking cheerfully by the way, but she said no more about her home beyond remarking that we were going quite a new road, and asking if it were a short one. While we were thus engaged, I revolved in my mind 100 different explanations of the riddle, and rejected them every one. I really felt ashamed to take advantage of the ingenuousness or grateful feeling of the child for the purpose of gratifying my curiosity. I love these little people, and it is not a slight thing when they, who are so fresh from God, love us. As I had felt pleased at first by her confidence, I determined to deserve it and to do credit to the nature which had prompted her to repose it in me. There was no reason, however, why I should refrain from seeing the person who had inconsiderately sent her to so great a distance by night and alone, as it was not improbable that if she found herself near home she might take farewell of me and deprive me of the opportunity. I avoided the most frequented ways and took the most intricate, and thus it was not until we arrived in the street itself that she knew where we were. Clapping her hands with pleasure and running on before me for a short distance, my little acquaintance stopped at a door and remained on the steps till I came up, knocked at it when I joined her. A part of this door was of glass, unprotected by any shutter, which I did not observe at first, for all was very dark and silent within, and I was very anxious, as indeed the child was also. For in answer to our summons, when she had knocked twice or thrice, there was a noise as if some person were moving inside, and at length a faint light appeared through the glass, which, as it approached very slowly, the bearer, having to make his way through a great many scattered articles, enabled me to see both what kind of person it was who advanced and what kind of place it was through which he came. I guess it's the old curiosity shop. It was an old man with long gray hair, whose face and figure, as he held the light above his head and looked before him as he approached, I could plainly see. Though much altered by age, I fancied, I could recognize in his spare and slender form something of that delicate mold which I had noticed in the child. Their bright blue eyes were certainly alike, but his face was so deeply furrowed and so full of care that here all resemblance ceased. The place through which he made his way at leisure was one of those receptacles for old and curious things which seemed to crouch in odd corners of this town and to hide their musty treasures from the public eye in jealousy and distrust. There were suits of mail standing like ghosts, and armor here and there, fantastic carvings brought from monkish cloisters, rusty weapons of various kinds, distorted figures in china and wood and iron and ivory, tapestry and strange furniture that might have been designed in dreams. The haggard aspect of the little old man was wonderfully suited to the place. He might have groped among old churches and tombs and deserted houses and gathered all the spoils with his own hands. There was nothing in the whole collection, oh lordy, but was in keeping with himself, nothing that looked older or more worn than he. As he turned the key in the lock, he surveyed me with some astonishment, which was not diminished when he looked from me to my companion. The door being opened, the child addressed him as grandfather, and told him the little story of our companionship. Sorry about this, y'all. "Why, bless thee, child," said the old man, patting her on the head. "How couldst thou miss thy way? What if I had lost thee, Nell?" "I would have found my way back to you, grandfather," said the child boldly. "Never fear." The old man kissed her, then turning to me and begging me to walk in, I did so. The door was closed and locked. Preceding me with the light, he led me through the place I'd already seen from without, into a small sitting room behind, in which there was another door opening into a kind of closet, where I saw a little bed that a fairy might have slept in. It looked so very small and so prettily arranged. The child took a candle and tripped into this little room, leaving the old man and me together. "You must be tired, sir," said he as he placed a chair near the fire. "How can I thank you?" "By taking more care of your grandchild another time, my good friend," I replied. "More care," said the old man in a shrill voice. "More care of Nellie? Why, who ever loved a child as I love Nell?" He said this with such evident surprise that I was perplexed what answer to make, and the more so because, coupled with something feeble and wandering in his manner, there were in his face marks of deep and anxious thought, which convinced me that he could not be, as I had been at first inclined to suppose, in a state of dotage or imbecility. "I don't think you consider," I began. "I don't consider," cried the old man, interrupting me. "I don't consider her. Ah, how little you know of the truth. Little Nellie? Little Nellie? It would be impossible for any man, I care not what his form of speech might be, to express more affection than the dealer in curiosities did in those four words. I waited for him to speak again, but he rested his chin upon his hand, and shaking his head twice or thrice, fixed his eye upon the fire. While we were sitting thus in silence, the door of the closet opened, and the child returned, her light brown hair hanging loose about her neck, and her face flushed with the haste which she had made to rejoin us. She busied herself immediately in preparing supper, and while she was thus engaged, I remarked that the old man took an opportunity of observing me more closely than he had done yet. I was surprised to see that all this time everything was done by the child, and that there appeared to be no other persons but ourselves in the house. I took advantage of the moment when she was absent to venture a hint on this point, to which the old man replied that there were few grown persons as trustworthy or as careful as she. "It always grieves me," I observed, roused by what I took to be his selfishness. "It always grieves me to contemplate the initiation of the children into the ways of life when they are scarcely more than infants. It checks their confidence and simplicity, two of the best qualities that heaven gives them, and demands that they share our sorrows before they are capable of entering into our enjoyments." "It will never check her," said the old man, looking steadily at me. "The springs are too deep. Besides, the children of the poor know but few pleasures. Even the cheap delights of childhood must be bought and paid for." "But forgiving me for saying this, you are surely not so very poor," said I. "She is not my child, sir," returned the old man. "Her mother was, and she was poor. I saved nothing, not a penny, though I live as you see, but—" He laid his hand upon my arm and leant forward to whisper, "She shall be rich one of these days, and a fine lady. Don't you think ill of me because I use her help. She gives it cheerfully, as you see, and it would break her heart if she knew that I suffered anybody else to do for me what her little hands could undertake. I don't consider," he cried with sudden querulousness, "why, God knows that this one child is the thought and object of my life, and yet he never prospers me, no, never." At this juncture, the subject of our conversation again returned, and the old man motioning to me to approach the table, broke off and said no more. We had scarcely begun our repast when there was a knock at the door, by which I had entered, and Nell, bursting into a hearty laugh, which I was rejoiced to hear, for it was childlike and full of hilarity, said it was no doubt dear old Kit coming back at last. "Foolish Nell," said the old man, fondling with her hair. "She always laughs at poor Kit." The child laughed again, more heartily than before, and I could not help smiling from pure sympathy. The little old man took up a candle and went to open the door. When he came back, Kit was at his heels. Kit was a shock-headed, shambling, awkward lad with an uncommonly wide mouth, very red cheeks, a turned-up nose, and certainly the most comical expression of face I ever saw. And I think I'm going to stop right there. Not sure how much more there is to go, but let me check. Not too much, but more than I want to get into now, because y'all know I'm going. Lord, help me stay awake. I'm trying to get this done. I can't wait to get this bag done so I can felt it. Did you see Sis Ola Joe's? So pretty. I think she used a Hobie yarn, and oh my gosh, it looks like a sunrise or sunset. I'm just doing red and brown. Red and brown and white. Brown. This was from Sale. I love this wool. Had been, this was in the 75% off sale, $6.49, and I got it for $1.62. Y'all, I've already been thinking about the 75% off clearance from from Hobby Lobby. I cannot. I got so much here. I need to be doing what Mary Ann's doing, which is fixing up boxes to sell, but that would require me getting off my bad feet and legs with a funky cold edema. But if wool's on sale, and I don't even know, I think they still have, I love this wool. I will be getting wool, because hopefully this will turn out good. I've been wanting to do felting ever since Bev wanted us to make it was a knitted bag, and I was going to frog that, but I don't think I am. I'm still would like to finish that. And I would like to do some needle felting, surface needle felting like Bev does. Dittmer Knittery. Check her out too. I love y'all. Be sweet, don't be ugly. I think we're going to like this book, Miss Pat. Thank you for your suggestion. And Miss Ashley, I'll see what I can do about that other when we finish this one. But I ain't making no promises. Not that you suggested it, just that it's Shakespeare. Okay. Love y'all. Be sweet, don't be ugly.